What you are about to discover will change the way you see the modern world forever. Every second of every day, our lives are surrounded by invisible signals. They carry our messages, our money, our secrets. They are the silent architecture of our entire civilization, a technology we call Wi-Fi. Most people believe this technology was born in the sterile labs of Silicon Valley, the product of computer engineers. But the truth is far more unbelievable. The real story begins not with engineers, but with the most beautiful woman in the world, a secret weapon, and a desperate plan to defeat the Nazis. This is the story of how a Hollywood movie star secretly invented the technology that would one day run the planet. The golden age of Hollywood. It was a world of manufactured dreams, where studios built stars into gods. And in the late 1930s and 40s, no star shone brighter than Hedy Lamarr. She was an icon of glamour and sophistication, her face insured by movie studios for millions. To the public, she was a perfect creation, an object of beauty. But behind the silver screen persona was a mind that was restless, brilliant, and dangerously underestimated. While other stars went to parties, Hedy Lamarr went home to invent. It was her secret obsession, a way to escape the crushing boredom of playing one-dimensional characters. She designed everything from improved traffic lights to a fizzy tablet that could turn water into a soft drink. She had the mind of an engineer trapped in the body of a goddess, and the world only cared about the body. To understand where this drive came from, we need to go back before Hollywood, to her first life in Austria. As a teenager, she was married off to one of the richest and most powerful men in the country, a wealthy arms dealer named Fritz Mandl. He was controlling and possessive, treating her as his ultimate prize. But her gilded cage came with a strange education. Mandl would host lavish dinners with his clients, high-ranking officials, and weapon scientists from the rising Nazi party. Hedy was forced to sit at these tables, smiling silently, while they openly discussed the most advanced military technology of the day: radio-controlled missiles, guidance systems, and torpedoes. They saw her as a beautiful ornament, incapable of understanding their work. They were wrong. She was absorbing every detail. And in a daring escape, she fled her husband, her country, and that entire life, eventually making her way to Hollywood. But that was only the beginning. In America, Hedy Lamarr's fame exploded. But as her star rose, so did the shadow of war in Europe. The same forces she had once dined with were now setting the world on fire. German U-boats, hunting in wolf packs, were devastating Allied shipping in the Atlantic. The ocean had become a graveyard. Hedy, a Jewish refugee, felt a desperate need to contribute, to do something more than just sell war bonds and look pretty for the cameras. She knew the technology being discussed at those dinner parties could be used against the Nazis, if only a critical flaw could be solved. But this is where everything takes a turn. Her partner in this quest would be one of the most unlikely collaborators imaginable. Not a scientist or an engineer, but an avant-garde composer named George Antheil. He was known as the bad boy of music, famous for creating chaotic symphonies using synchronized player pianos, sirens, and airplane propellers. He and Hedy were neighbors, and they bonded not over Hollywood gossip, but over their shared, fierce intellect. They began discussing the war and specifically, the critical problem facing the Allies. The U.S. Navy was developing radio-controlled torpedoes, a potential game-changer against the U-boats. But there was a fatal weakness. The torpedo was guided by a single radio frequency. All the Germans had to do was find that frequency and jam it, sending the torpedo veering uselessly off course. The weapon was a sitting duck. And in one of these conversations, Hedy Lamarr had the spark of an idea. An idea born from her memory of weapons technology and her understanding of music. What if the signal wasn't on one frequency? What if the signal could be made to jump, randomly, from one frequency to another, faster than the enemy could track it? It would be like trying to listen to a conversation where the speakers are constantly changing languages every half second. To an enemy trying to jam the signal, it would just be indecipherable static. The concept was brilliant. But the real question is, how could you possibly build it? How could you make two separate machines, a transmitter in a ship and a receiver in a torpedo miles away, hop between frequencies in perfect, synchronized harmony? Here's where things get even more intense. George Antheil, the musician, had the answer. He had spent years working on a composition that required synchronizing 16-player pianos at once. He knew exactly how to make two separate mechanical systems work in perfect time. Their solution was ingenious. They designed a system using two identical paper rolls, like the ones in a player piano, punched with a pseudo-random code of 88 different positions, the same number of keys on a piano. One roll would be in the transmitter, the other in the torpedo. As the rolls turned in perfect sync, they would guide the signal to hop between 88 different frequencies. It was a secret communication system. Unjammable. Unbreakable. A war-winning invention. And what happened next shocked even the experts. In 1942, Hedy Lamarr and George Antheil were granted a patent for their invention. And they immediately offered it, completely free of charge, to the US Navy, hoping it would be used to turn the tide of the war. They had handed the most powerful military on Earth the key to secure wireless communication. This is the point where the story becomes unbelievable. The US Navy rejected it. They looked at the invention, a complex system of player piano rolls designed by a glamorous movie star and a radical composer, and dismissed it as too complicated, too cumbersome to implement. They patted Hedy Lamarr on the head and told her she would be far more valuable to the war effort if she simply used her famous face to sell war bonds. Her identity as a beautiful woman had become a prison for her mind. The invention, a technology that could have saved thousands of lives and shortened the war, was classified by the military and buried in a vault. Her patent expired, worthless. Her contribution was forgotten. The world moved on. But the idea did not die. Years later, during the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, the US Navy was desperate for a way to secure its communications. Engineers rediscovered the old, forgotten patent from the movie star and the musician. This time, with the advent of transistors, they could finally build it. They secretly began implementing what they called frequency-hopping spread spectrum technology into their military ships. But the real explosion was yet to come. To see the full picture, look at the world around you. In the 1980s and 90s, as private companies began developing the first wireless technologies, they faced the same problem the Navy had: how to create a secure and reliable signal that wouldn't interfere with other devices. The solution they found was Hedy Lamarr's frequency-hopping spread spectrum. It was the perfect blueprint. Her invention became the foundational principle behind Wi-Fi. It became the basis for Bluetooth. It is embedded in GPS systems, in cordless phones, and in countless other wireless protocols that form the invisible nervous system of our planet. Every time you connect to a network, every time you pair a device, you are using a direct descendant of the secret communication system designed by a Hollywood actress to hunt Nazi submarines. Hedy Lamarr and George Antheil never received a single dollar for their multi-billion-dollar invention. Recognition came only at the very end of their lives, long after their patent had expired and their contribution had been adopted by the world. Hedy was the glamorous movie star who secretly gave us the modern age of connectivity. She was a mind the world wasn't ready to see. And the truth is, this story isn't finished yet. Her hidden legacy is embedded in every signal that surrounds us, a silent testament to the genius that was hiding in plain sight.